Welcome to the Top Dog Mindset Podcast, where we unlock the secrets of running a successful dog training business. I'm your host, Kevin, joined by my co-host, Angel. Together, we bring you expert insights, inspiring stories, and practical tips. Whether you're a seasoned pro or just starting out, we're here to provide you with the necessary information to build a thriving dog training company. So relax, join us with a cup of coffee as we explore the Top Dog Mindset Podcast.
Welcome in, everybody, to another episode of the Top Dog Mindset Podcast. Kevin and Angel here, and we have a topic that has been on Angel's mind for the past couple of weeks that I know she's super excited to talk about, and that is the idea of hiring and how we work with so many different dog training businesses. I speak to so many different dog trainers over the year, and I think there's just a lot of people who delay on making their first hire. And I've just seen it time and time again when people finally do pull the trigger and make that hire, how much happier they are, how much smoother their business runs, and how they start thinking about it in terms of, I can't imagine running my business without this person, and I don't know how I made it this far without this person. And so, Angel, I know you have a couple ideas on this and just kind of thoughts you want to share. So why don't you kind of jump in here and just kind of talk to everybody about like kind of what's on your mind and what you've been thinking about.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like this was just a good topic because like I told you before, it seems to be a trending topic recently within, like for us and our clients and stuff like that. More conversations happening of like us trying to help our clients work through those fears of deciding to finally bite the bullet and start to look for someone, or at least people starting to realize that that's like a big goal of theirs going into the new year. But yeah, I mean, I think I think one of the biggest things, like we always say, people being so hesitant to hire is usually fear-based for whatever reason that might be. But I want to hear what you have to say on this because I feel like the thing that it always comes down to is like, well, how much should I start paying them? Because what if I
Mm.
can't afford to pay them? Even though they're thinking too much in the now versus like how that's actually going to help you grow your business and you're going to be able to then afford to hire another person and then another person and you're just going to grow overall. But how do I pay them? And then what was the other thing? How do I look for them? Because
Mm-hmm.
people just automatically assume like, want to maybe get someone like if we're talking about trainers, for instance, I don't want to get someone who has trained before because I want to start them out fresh. How do I look for that type of person? Or I want someone who has experience, or because I don't have the time to train them. So all those different types of things. But I feel like the biggest one is like, how do I even like begin looking for this person? And how do I figure out how I should start paying them?
How did you find us? How did we find you?
How did we find each other? The post that you made was shared with me with
Uh-huh.
Jenny. Jenny recommended, like, it got us connected.
Yeah, because we were
Granted,
not
we
friends on Facebook at that point, I
no,
guess, right?
we weren't friends on Facebook. I mean, I knew of you and I knew
Mm-hmm.
of Top Dog because we had used you in the past,
Yeah.
but I wasn't, like, as involved in, like, the work between you guys.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah,
You
not
had
enough
you had
to
heard of the legend, you know?
that was it.
Yeah.
But yeah, you just made a post on Facebook and then it was shared, like I think everyone did, and then she tagged me in it. It happened to be perfect timing for me and everything just aligned perfectly. But yeah, just a Facebook post.
Well, just so everyone gets that story real quick, why was it perfect for you? What was kind of like going on in your life and your career at the time that like made it kind of like feel perfect to you?
So I, at the time, had been training dogs for about 10 or 11 years. And about 6 months prior to that, I mean, I never really was sure if training dogs was something that I wanted to do forever. Those thoughts mostly started coming up, once I had kids and all that kind of stuff. I'm like, do I want to do this like with kids? So it would be like a passive thought every so often, but I would say like the last 6 months of me actively training dogs is really when I started like considering if I wanted to do this forever. And then I just kept thinking about it more and more and more. And then it just got to a point where I was like, okay, I think I made my decision and I am going to actively start trying to like find my way out of training. And, I was so used to just being in the dog world, and I was so used to, working from home and all that kind of stuff. So that same dynamic was still very ideal. I just wasn't sure exactly what it was that I wanted to do or what would be the perfect position for me, being able to stay in the industry, just not training. And not gonna lie, like there was a point in time where I just felt a little bit lost because I was already in the mindset of wanting to leave, but at the same time not having a fucking clue like what I was doing or going to do. And then literally at that same exact time, probably within like that the same few weeks that I was like actively looking elsewhere is when you then were hiring for my position.
Hmm.
And yeah, so it lined up perfectly.
And you were looking on where? Like Indeed, Monster.com, stuff like that?
Yeah, yeah, I was mostly looking on Indeed.
I don't even know
And
if
I
Monster.com is
actually
still a thing. It's gotta be, but
yeah,
yeah.
I was gonna say I've never heard of monster.com, but
Don't go to Monster.com. I feel like that could be something completely different, and I don't wanna be advocating for that.
yeah. But yeah, that was, a little over 2 years ago now, right?
Yeah, 2 years in
And
October.
yeah, so I still to this day, I think it was a couple weeks ago actually that I got the most recent like text message or email or something like that that was in response to a position that I applied for like 2 years ago.
Really?
I was like,
So,
"Damn, it's a little too late." Not
what
something I
was
would
the
have even not
yeah,
something I would have wanted to do. I have no idea what it was.
uh
Honestly, I don't remember, but yeah, I just thought that was funny how I'm like just now getting some responses after 2 years.
yeah, that's such a crapshoot, honestly, and I think that ties in perfectly with, like, the question you were asking me before is, like, so first and foremost, there are people out there who would love the opportunity to work for your company, you know? It's like they get to work for a young person who's, like, hungry and trying to build something. And I remember saying something to you when you first started working with us. That was like, hey, if you take care of me and you take care of our company and you help me, build it along the way, then I'm going to take great care of you as well. And so I feel like that's something that if you guys are serious about building a company, if you don't have $1 million to pay somebody, yeah, like, or even $100,000 or $50,000 a year or something like that to get them started or something. Like, not everybody's looking for that. Not everybody expects that. Like, would it be nice? Of course. But at the end of the day, if you can just say to people in the beginning, like, hey, here's what I can afford to pay. I'm doing this and hiring this for this position because I want to grow the company. And if you can help me do that, then I'm going to reward you for that. I'm going to pay you bonuses. You're going to get raises and stuff like that. And so, you can find people that are really hardworking and they want to be your number two person. They don't want to
Mhm.
necessarily have their own company, but they want to be involved in something and, help run the company and stuff like that. So what I would say is like, first and foremost, this was the same question I had when I first started looking. Like I remember before we got connected, asking these same exact questions to people that were in my circle and different coaching communities that I'm in of like, how do you find that person? And who are they going to be? And what do you pay? And the truth is you just kind of do your best and get started and you tap into your own like immediate network, and that's Instagram, Facebook, telling friends and family you're looking to hire somebody, and you'd be surprised who comes along. I
Mhm.
never would have thought in a million years that, like, Jenny would have had somebody to connect me to, and now she's done it twice. And so you just never know who's going to show up in your life and who that person's going to be. And the funny thing is, that's how it usually goes. Even with, Wall Street firms, Roosevelt and Cross or Goldman Sachs or any of those companies, like, do they sometimes just go for the immediate Harvard or Yale graduate? Yeah. But a lot of times the way that people get internships working for these companies is like their brother-in-law works there, or their dad works there, or their uncle does, or, their father's friend works there and stuff like that. It's like people get jobs all the time just through mutual immediate connections, and that's how you guys are probably going to find somebody who's going to be a really good supporting person in your business. So post on social media, say this is the exact position I'm hiring for. This is what the responsibilities would be for, and you don't even necessarily in that initial post have to say how much you're willing to pay.
Mhm.
If you're really that uncomfortable with it, like, you can get somebody on a call and just say to them, "Hey, we're kind of like in the preliminary stages of hiring for this position. We're a young and growing company. What does your current financial situation look like right now? Like, what are you earning at your current job?" Because if they tell you I'm making 15 grand a month, you're like, "Okay, I can't afford you. Moving on," you
Mhm.
know? But if they're like, "Hey, working part time. I only want to work a little bit more. I'd really like to get up to full time, but right now I need some time to get myself there. I'm making $1,800 a month, and you might be able to
Yeah.
say, I can afford to pay this person $2,500 a month. And with the prospect of having the potential to grow even more. So, does that answer your question?
Yeah, yeah, it does. And I actually got my first dog training job with a company that I had hired for my dogs. So I
Hmm.
was a client of theirs, and that's pretty much how I got connected and got that opportunity. And then even, one of my other good friends who I used to train dogs with, we're still great friends, and she is also a client of ours. But she was someone that like we had connected with because she was in the rescue world. She was a director of her own like pretty big rescue where we were locally. And so that's how we got connected to her. And then she wanted to like further her knowledge and just get more involved in training. And she ended up getting a training job. That's how she got it. And then she, turned out to end up buying the company and is now owner of the company. And so many opportunities can come from people who you just have like people either that you're already close to or just have like mutual connections with. And I even had a client of mine whenever was training, I had one of my clients, she was one of my favorite clients and she was a freaking natural. She was amazing, loved her. And we even like jokingly, but like we were actually serious, but we would always jokingly mention to her, like, hey, do you want a job? Like, we'll hire you. Cause she was just so good. We had such a great relationship in general, but she
Hmm.
was amazing and just like picked everything up perfectly. She would have been an amazing dog training employee. But yeah, I feel like that's a good start is to just start with like people closest to you,
Yeah. Yeah.
clients and stuff like that.
100%. And I even think back to when you first started working with us. I remember at the time, like, this is thinking, like, okay, this is what we can kind of like afford to pay for this position. And I remember saying to you, like, hey, this is what it starts at. Is that something that you're comfortable with? And you were like, well, this is kind of what I'm making at in my current position. So, like, I would need to make that. And I was like, all right, well, let me see if we can make it work. And then we were able to, and we kind of like
Mhm.
figured it out. And so, you can have that same discussion with people too. You can just, I've learned this from doing a million sales calls too. Like, I don't want to make this conversation about sales too, but something what I'll do when people like come up with like a financial objection to me, so many times people think of like, I need to have the most creative way to handle it, think about putting the spin on it and being super savvy with the way that I handle like price objections and stuff like that. What I've realized is like, I just say to people like, hey, can we have like a candid financial conversation? And people will say, yeah. And I'll say, how much money do you have? And they'll tell me. And it's because they want to make it happen and they want to do this and they know it has the opportunity to, grow their business. And they'll say, this is how much I have and this is how much I have coming in next month, but this is how much I need to pay for my rent. And I'm not as callous about it, but like I'll be a little bit more just softer about my approach of delivering it. But you can do the same thing with like hiring too. Like this is when I coach people through this, which we do all the time. They're like, I have this great person and I'm scared I'm not gonna be able to afford them. And just go ask them.
Mhm.
Just go talk to them. Be like, "What do you need what do your bills look like?" Because
Yeah.
if it's not like you're being nosy to the point of like you're gonna get this information and then like go broadcast it and tell everybody like this person makes this much money and this is what their rent looks like and this is what their car payment is. Like you don't care, and nor do they if they feel like, hey, this is a good opportunity for me and I just need to find a way to make it work financially. It's just like a math equation and we just need to make it work. You can
Mhm.
just go and talk to them about it openly.
Yeah, yeah. But you're really good at like you personally are really good at talking to people and like building really good rapport and getting people to open up and not to go down like a totally different rabbit hole. But this is why it is so important to make sure that you're building good rapport and relationships with people right off the bat. You
Yeah.
can't just like go in, hey, my $4,000 program. Oh, you can't? Okay. Can we have a candid conversation. How much do you make? Like, If you don't have anything built in
Are you
like
trying to tell me that I shouldn't ask people that question? Is
no,
that what you're trying to do
I'm
right now?
not no, I'm not saying that at all. I'm saying people open up to you
Yeah.
about it because, like, you've already, gained their trust and you've
Yeah.
already gotten them to like you and want to open up to you. Like,
Yeah.
we had those same conversations whenever you and I first talked too. And so that's just the whole point is, like, in order to have those, like, very candid conversations about finances, like their personal finances and stuff like that,
Yeah.
people aren't just going to open up right off the bat. So, again, whole point of building good relationships and getting them to trust you and getting them to like you and
Yeah.
just feel comfortable with opening up enough to share that information, knowing that like they're going to trust you to figure out how to make it work. Whether
Yeah.
that is like selling the program or figuring out pay to hire them.
Exactly. Yeah. But so many people just get hung up there and they're like fearful to ask that question or it'll be rude or something like that. And what I always think about it's like, what's more rude? Asking them the question and first off, asking their permission if you can even ask it first,
Mhm.
or just letting the, opportunity fizzle out and like not letting them get the job because you just were unwilling to maybe have a slightly uncomfortable conversation or not letting them become a client of yours where you're going to make a big impact in their life and their dog's training because you were just feeling a little bit uncomfortable just to have that conversation with them, you know?
Mhm.
But you're exactly right. Like you obviously can't ask that question like, first 30 seconds of meeting somebody, how much money do you make, you know?
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I think if it gets to that point and they're like you feel really comfortable that they either want to work with you or they want the job and it's just we're kind of like missing, we're just off by a couple $100 here or something like that. It's like, why not just have a conversation about it? Let's just put it all out in the open, you know?
Yeah, yeah, exactly. What is your advice to people when it comes to like talking about figuring out how to pay someone? Like, obviously, you talked about having that conversation of what would that employee need starting off
Mhm.
with? Like, what would they need in order to be able to support themselves? But on the other end, the person who is hiring, how would you advise them to like figure out their finances as far as, is looking for someone to hire even the right step?
Yeah, so that's a great question. Are you kind of asking like how to know when you're ready financially to hire somebody?
Yes, specifically financially, because when it comes to like all the other tasks going on in your business and you're falling behind on certain things, then those are pretty obvious signs that you need help. But what about the financial part?
Yeah, I think that it all starts with understanding what your profitability is, And everybody who owns a company, there's a very simple way to do that. First and foremost, like have a QuickBooks Online account, categorize your stuff, your expenses and your income properly. And that way it's all put into a profit and loss statement for you. And you can just look at the bottom line number and see, okay, I made $100,000 this year and I had $80,000 worth of expenses. And it means I have like a net profit of $80,000. And, what am I comfortable with? But
Hmm.
there's two different angles you want to look at it from. It's like you could look at it go, hey, I make 80 grand a year. I don't want to give any of that up and have to pay $40,000 a year to a receptionist or something like that. Now I'm only making 40. You're doing this and you're making a hire so that one, your business grows and you can continue to grow your top line revenue and still be more and more profitable. And two, to make your life better. Like
Hmm.
that is something that is such a massive asset to having people on your team. And if anybody takes anything away from this call, I want it to be this is for me, I'll just speak from personal experience. Like it is really difficult to do something day in and day out entirely on your own. You and I have had a million conversations about difficult, situations with clients and strategizing about the business and stuff like that. And it's just really nice to be able to bounce ideas off of somebody and have somebody else who cares about the same thing that you do, and not just be
Yeah.
totally in it yourself. And again, if you're dealing with a difficult client or something, be able to say like, hey, how do you think I should word this? Or how should we handle this? And just get different perspectives on it and stuff like that. And so that you're also investing in your own sanity in a way to have other people that are kind of just like supporting you and you're just not all in it by yourself. But to go back to your original question, like you should have your profit and loss statement, know what your profitability is, and just think of it in terms of like, what can I afford to pay here? You know?
Mhm.
And going to find somebody, if you tap into your immediate network and you can't find somebody, that doesn't mean that there's nobody available. Go to other places like Indeed,
Mhm.
and you can use Indeed in two different ways. Like you can go on there and create a business account where you post job listings to find people, but you can also create an account like you are an employee looking for a job. And so what you can do is go put in your city, like San Francisco, and put in dog trainer, right? And if nothing comes up immediately, go and look at like the next biggest city near you or something like that and be like, what are dog trainers in this area getting paid? You know what I
Mhm.
mean? And so a lot of times people are like, I can't figure out what to pay somebody. It's like, well, you kind of have to take a look at the local market and stuff like that. But again, just because off leash canine is paying somebody whatever it is, I'm going to pull random numbers out of the air, like X amount per dog or $25 an hour or something like that, doesn't mean you need to pay them that, right? If you can't afford it, you can't afford it. There's different
Mhm.
reasons somebody's going to want to come work for Joe's dog training versus off leash canine. Maybe it's a better work environment for them. Maybe they have more flexibility with you. Maybe you're closer to them. There's just a lot of, maybe it's not as demanding of an environment. Like there's so many different reasons that people are going to want to work for you. So what I would tell everybody is like, don't just make the immediate irrational decision of like, I can't afford to hire somebody. It's like go and put some feelers out there. Maybe you can only afford to have somebody part-time working with you, but then that grows into a full-time role. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah. I think that's really good advice. And I think those are all things as far as like what you talked about initially is with just like keeping track of your numbers and all that kind of stuff. Like that's something that you should be doing regardless. I often see people like only doing those things when they have employees. Granted, that's great because obviously you have to keep track of that stuff to make sure everyone's getting paid, you're getting paid, and all that kind of stuff. But I feel like people need to be doing that regardless because even if you're not hiring someone, if you're making any other big moves in your business or investing in something, like you're going to need to understand where you're at and where your profit is at and all that. But yeah, first really good step is just being more mindful of, the actual like business part of your business.
Yeah. If it's always interesting to me when you ask somebody like how much did your business make last month and they're like I don't know. It's like that's a big problem. That's like
Yeah.
something that you should know like the back of your hand. How much money did you make last year? I don't really know. It's like how you have no idea how what the financial health and yeah, just like situation of your company is. So you got to know that stuff and the reason people don't do this, myself included, is it's boring as shit. You know what I
Mhm.
mean? Like, you know what else is boring is like going through every single client account and talking about every little nuanced thing or going through every single ad account and trying to be like, why is this converting 2% less than it should be this week? Like that
Mhm.
stuff is not particularly fun. Going through and having a conversation with your appointment setter and reviewing every single call or every single DM that came in. It's not fun, you know? But that's
Yeah.
the type of stuff that gets you to the point where you can really start making bigger moves in your business.
Mhm.
It's the little details. But I think there's also the emotional aspect of it too, where there's kind of you feel like there's a boogeyman like hiding on the other side of the closet door and you just don't want to look in there. And you're like scared to look at your numbers because you're like, I know things aren't good and I know my expenses have been kind of running wild and, my car started having issues and I had to pay for that. And you feel like you're falling behind and last month wasn't good. We didn't have a lot of signups. And so you become so fearful to ever actually like look at the numbers. And so you
Mhm.
don't. And what I found is like you have to stare that stuff directly in the face and, bring it out into the light. So that way you can clearly identify what's going on and fix it. But if you just pretend like it's not happening and you pretend like, it'll just get better on its own and I don't need to pay attention to the numbers, then you always just make decisions entirely based out of emotion and not out of reality. And there's a lot of people who probably can afford to hire somebody, but they think the financial health of their business is way worse than it is. And there's actually people who hire people who can't afford to hire people. I've seen
Mhm.
both of it. And so I think that's why you just need to know your numbers, bring that stuff out into the light, pay very close attention to it, because the closer attention you pay to where your money comes and goes, all of a sudden, the more control you have over it. And you can like, that's a really fun thing. It's like when you see, like, this is what my cash flow situation looks like. This is how much money I want to earn in the month. So you can start kind of reverse engineering. This is how many consultations I need to get. This is what my closing percentage needs to be. If I want to get this many consults, this is how much I need to spend on ads. this time of year, all that stuff, you know? So I know I'm kind of going on a tangent here, but go ahead, Angel.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think that a good goal for everyone going into the new year, whether you have a plan of hiring someone new or not, is just tapping more into like your actual business mindset. Because I would say probably, I was going to say 99%, but probably 100% of the time when people are starting up a dog training business, it's because it is their passion. It is something that they love to do. It's something that they're good at. And so they decide to start their own business. Very rarely is someone going to say, like, I want to get into the business of dog training because you make a lot of money. It's
Hmm.
usually started from something that people are passionate about and they want to turn it into a business, but often fail to like really get into like the actual business mindset part of it. And that's where you start falling behind by just like not understanding everything going on in your business. So, like I said, whether you have goals of hiring someone or growing your team or anything of that nature, just simply tapping more into the business mindset to have a better understanding of like all the ins and outs of your business, in the event that, someone comes along and they just quiz you about literally everything that's going on and you're going to know it and understand it like the back of your hand.
Exactly. Yeah. And I just think there's a period in time where you need to work your ass off in the beginning. You know, it's like the cliche that every entrepreneur says and everyone hears, and it's like exciting in the beginning, like I'm gonna have to work so hard and stuff like that. And you know, it is all on you in the beginning. You know,
Mhm.
I remember Alex Hormozy said something, and I'm going to totally get this wrong because it was like a couple months ago that I heard him say this, but it's like in the beginning, you're kind of like fighting a wolf off with a stick by yourself, you know, and then all of a sudden you're kind of like, fighting like a gorilla with, a couple other like close people and stuff like that. And then your business keeps evolving to the point where you're like, fighting an army with like your own army, you know?
Mhm.
And you have to kind of go through. I know I got that wrong, so you guys can go look up the actual quote there and see what it was, but that's
I'm interested to know what the actual one
yeah,
was.
it's you can look it up now if you want, but it's that's like the general gist of what the idea is. And
Mhm.
it really resonated with me because I think back to some of my early days when I started this company and just grinding it out by any means necessary, taking on people that like I look at now and I'm like I would never take that person on as a client nowadays. And yeah, just the relief you get when you finally get somebody in to just help with like little things,
Mhm.
and then all of a sudden you bring more people in and you start getting really good people on your team that you can rely on and trust, and it's just such a better way of doing things.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. But yeah, so I mean, I think what people always really kind of ask about is like the practical part of hiring and like how do I do it, And so if you want some really tactical advice, here's what you do. You go to canva.com, which is free, and you tell it what you want to design, which is a Facebook post, and you pick out a template for we're hiring, and there's going to be a million in there, and you're going to pick out a template where you swap out the photo of you and a dog, right? And it's going to say like we're hiring dog trainer, right? In X city. Here's like the top 3 things that, are the benefits of this job. Flexible hours, good pay if you can afford to pay people well, and fun environment, whatever you want to put in there, you know what I mean?
Mhm.
Or like opportunity to learn a new career path or something like that. And then you go to ChatGPT and you screenshot that post that you just created and say, I want to create like a description that I can post along with this that I'm going to post on my Facebook profile. And then it gives you exactly what it is. You tell it, hey, I want you to add this in, or what are other aspects you think that would make this job posting more appealing and gripping and captivating. And you just wordsmith it until you get something good and you post it. And then you post it in local groups in your area. And you post it on your Instagram. And if you really wanted to, you could boost that post, right? Pay to boost it, $5 a day for a week. And you'll start getting applications or people commenting on it saying, me, I want to do this. If that doesn't work, go to indeed.com and pay to sponsor a post,
Mhm.
But the last thing I'll say about that is I think a lot of times people there's very short-sighted in the way that they go about recruiting talent. They think like, "Oh, I don't have somebody who fell into my lap. So like I can't find somebody." And then it's like, "Okay, well, go and sponsor a job listing on Indeed." Well, I don't want to have to pay for it. It's like, why? You pay to market your business every single month. Why wouldn't you pay to find somebody who's going to help you make over the years millions of dollars?
Yeah.
Why would you not pay for that? You know what I mean? It's like, don't be penny wise and pound foolish and think of like, I don't want to spend the $20 this week to do it, or the
Mhm.
$10 a day or whatever. It's like, go and market and find the right person, because this is, as soon as you find that person, it's just going to make your life so much better, you know?
Mhm. Yeah.
So the last thing I want to say on this is like, I think that this is for a lot of people. I know there's a lot of fear around it. And so what I would tell you is, as an entrepreneur, sometimes you need to have, or a lot of times I should say, you need to have the mentality of jump and the net will appear type of thing, you know? Like, what if I can't afford to pay them? What if I hire them and they leave me or something like that? It's like, okay, all of that can happen, but you're not there yet. And so don't worry about stuff that hasn't happened yet. And think about it in terms of, what if this works and it goes really well? And I just always think, like, anytime I've ever put myself in that position to like be, of course, strategic about it and not just make like stupid hires that I don't really need or don't really fit our business and stuff like that. But anytime I've really like gotten myself to a point of like, this is really painful. I can no longer do this myself because I do not have the time to do it. And I invest in hiring somebody to help me with it. All of a sudden, the job starts getting done way better than I was doing it. And we have like a bigger leap in the growth of our business. So I guarantee you guys will see that too. Like, all the companies that we work with that are dog training companies that make 50 grand a month or 80 grand a month, 100 grand a month plus, they're not doing it themselves, you know?
Mhm.
And all of them, my business included, started with one really good key hire, you know? And so if you can find like somebody, I always kind of joke with you, Angel, and say that like I like manifested you, you know, like I really think that like you weren't even a real person until I just started like dreaming, you know, like about like filling that position and stuff like that. But you were like, you know, and still are like very much so like a Swiss Army knife in this business, doing a lot of different stuff. You know, you help me with marketing, you help me with, you know, all of the client management, many different things, you know? And so you guys can
Mhm.
find somebody like that too, where it's like they're a really good dog trainer, but they're also a very sweet, caring person. And so if you want to go out to dinner with your husband or your wife or something like that, you can say to them, hey, would you mind taking the phone for tonight? You know, there's people out there that'd be like happy to do that for you. And
Mhm.
so just find one really good key hire in the beginning that can help with a lot of different stuff. Don't overwhelm them and make it unrealistic and just try and put your entire business on them. But we have tons of clients that I look at like their company. I'm like, yeah, they have a number two person in their business that without that person, this business would not be around.
Yeah. And like you talk all the time about like you don't need to hire someone that has the skill set that you need right off the bat. You need to find someone who is just genuinely a good person, who is, you know, you have good conversation with, who is willing to
Mhm.
grow and grow with you. And, you know, you want to look for like basically like personality qualities in this person versus like, oh, do you have experience with, you know, a high demand job where the phone is always ringing because you're going to be answering the phone a lot and setting appointments, or have you ever worked with dogs before, or, you know, any of that. As long as like they meet all of these qualities personality wise and again are willing to grow with you, I think that's the most important thing because then you can teach them all of these other things to go along with it as far as what they're going to need to do for that job.
I always just think about personality matters and attitude matters more than anything. I've had people that
Yeah.
I've like hired and they're like negative and they tell me like, well, here's why that can't happen. And I always think about Dana White, where he was like, it's 2025, anything can happen, just find out a way to make it happen, you know?
Hmm.
And that's kind of the mentality that I want my people to have inside of our company is like, don't don't be negative. Don't like bring me down when I have an idea and tell me why that's like not going to work and here's all the reasons why, you know? So I really just think that positivity goes a long way. And that ties into what we were talking about before too, of like not being in it by yourself. And like there are going to be moments where you feel really down and you're going to feel like I'm failing here and this is not what I expected to see out of this year and stuff like that. And having people that are there and around you to support you and keep, you know, maybe pick up the slack a little bit for you when you're not at your best or your peak,
Hmm.
you're going to have way more efficiency than, you know,
Hmm.
just trying to do everything yourself at all hours of the day.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah. So with that being said, we'll wrap things up for today, but I hope you guys got some value out of this one. I know, Angel, this was an episode that you were dying to record for quite some time. So I'm hoping that you got to say everything you wanted to say here.
Yeah, I feel like it was a good episode. We
Yeah.
talk about hiring quite often, but I think we touched on a few like new key points this time.
Yeah. Just get started with something. There
Yeah.
is no like one way to do it. It's like, how do you train a dog? That's like that's like a good example, right? It's like someone coming to you and be like, how do I train my dog? You're like, I don't really haven't met your dog yet. You haven't tell me anything about what's going on. There's different
Mhm.
places to find people. If you were running a law firm, and you were looking for another attorney, you probably wouldn't go to Facebook. You'd probably go to like a legal directory or something like that, or you'd probably go to LinkedIn or something like that. But for dog training businesses, like what I've noticed is like local Facebook groups. And there's also that Facebook group for like dog trainers looking for jobs. So there's a like
Mhm.
dog trainer like referral group and stuff like that. I joined there.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, just tap into your local network. And if you need to find somebody who doesn't have dog training experience, but they love animals and they're just a positive person, some people are like so fearful of hiring that person because they're like, how long is it going to take to train this person up? I've seen people spend 2 years like trying to find the perfect person that never comes along. And in the meantime, they could have spent the last 6 months with somebody who's just really excited about learning a new skill. And they'd probably have a really good like associate trainer by now if they just got started with somebody and taught them.
Yeah.
Yeah. So with that being said, we'll wrap things up for the day, but I hope you guys got some value out of this. And yeah, I think this will be coming out officially in the new year, I believe. So
Mhm.
happy new year to everybody. I wish you guys nothing but the best this year. And if there's anything we can do for you guys, if you want us to go like more in depth into, hiring or whatever topic you want to hear about. I mean, we're always looking for different things to talk about. We want to know what you guys want to hear about. So make sure to comment below. Make sure to just give us kind of your thoughts on what you want to hear about, and we'll make sure to record that for you. So with that being said, we're going to wrap up here, and we will see you guys all very soon in the next one. See you guys.
See you next year.